I've always been a fan of Mark. I've always been a fan of Daphne and the stories that they like to shine light on. This story, I think a lot of people might look at American bombing as, oh, it's the story of OKC and how it came about. But I think the reason why I've loved this project so much is that it's a really complex image. It's kind of like a painting that the more that you look at it, the more details you see, because this isn't a story that's been solved. And outside of it not being a story that's been solved, it's also very much just reminiscent of things that are going on today.
Think it
That
was solved?
hmm?
You think it was solved or it's not? Because the other people,
I
there's
mean,
talk about
I
that
think
other
there's
person.
theories.
There's that
I
other
think
person.
there's still theories. I even in our research of doing this film, I think there are still theories. There are not critically solved answers of how many people have been involved with this outside of Timothy McVeigh. Yes, Timothy McVeigh was involved. Yes, Terry Nichols was involved. But there still are these question marks that people have. Whether and there's not, and if you wanted to go to a conspiracy side, there's a bunch of people that could push it and try to say this is the government's fault. And then there's another amount of people that could say, no, it's nowhere near that. It's a homegrown plot that came from a whole other place. But you can't say yes or no to either of those sides, unfortunately. Unfortunately. And I think that's the scary thing about this, because those unanswered questions are where a lot of the rage and anger come from
Yeah.
in some of these political spaces, because they want answers, and then because they are not being given answers like this is correct, this is not correct, or this is right and this is wrong, because they have to live in a gray space. I think a lot of people won't compromise on that. They're going, because I don't feel comfortable with that unknown, because there shouldn't be an unknown, I'm going to act out in a rage. I'm going to hurt someone. I might even go and kill someone. And that's a very dangerous thing. And that's what I mean. This is a narrative that, like, I remember the thing that I always say is that I worked on Mark's last film, It's Basic. And It's
Yeah.
Basic was something that I felt very, very connected on working with. I remember when there was kind of a conversation about that film starting. The film, I mean, Mark and Daphne were working on it, and John Mayman was the main editor on that, who also is a co-editor on this project. And John mentioned this idea to me that Mark and Daphne were trying to look at this universal basic income idea, and I was like, I want to be a part of. While we were working on that film, this idea for this film started perking up, and I was like, ooh, this is a dangerous one. Like, it's a very riveting topic. I loved being like deep into the archives of researching this. But the thing that was scary about this narrative is that the further that you go in either direction, whether you want to go the liberal route, whether you want to go the radical route, you're going to end up in two different spaces where people end up hating the other side. And that's not, I mean, that's human nature to some extent, but on another level, that's very scary. That's like, to recognize that you could sit with a very rational person and be like, hey, like, there are people on the other side of this world that think you are wrong. And they would go as far as to be like, no, they're wrong. And I hate those people for that. And they don't even know the people. They can't even see them. They can't even meet them. But that fervent, like, disgust for another people starts to happen is very interesting to me. And that alone, like I said, I knew this was going to be a daunting project, but the more that we worked on it, we were like, this is kind of the conversation we want to start, because I don't think enough people are comfortable having it. Obviously, Mark and Daphne are.
Don't you think a film like this helps, people
Yes.
understand each other?
Yes, yes. I mean, I think we've done different screenings of this and shown it to different age groups. And, I think probably the most interesting thing about it is that everyone does come to a conclusion that they should open up to speaking to the other side. And if not, like, believe the other side or agree with the other side, at least listen to it to understand where it comes from. Because, I mean, there's a perfect example is this film has one of our US presidents analyzing this methodology, this philosophy of, like, what is wrong with America, and analyzing it from the people who hate the space that they're living in and want to revolt against it to create something new. I think that alone, that sort of empathy is the thing that we're supposed to be aspiring toward, regardless of who we like or who we agree with or who we don't. You're supposed to have some sort of empathy and some sort of consciousness to go, I'm going to at least listen so that I can understand where these people are coming from and where they might head if I don't continue to listen. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying. That gray space, that's a danger. That's a very huge danger to keep people in for too long, because we all like closure to some extent or another. You know, we all need that. And I think that's why a film like this it's good to help in that healing process.
It was in Arkansas that some of these groups, like the CSA, these radical groups first started plotting how to go to war with the United States. The CSA was the Covenant of the Sword and the Arm of the Lord. I think Clinton really wanted to talk about the Arkansas experience. He saw when he was governor. It's not even in his autobiography, which is over 1,000 pages. I went searching for it. There's very little, but he really wanted to discuss what was happening in Arkansas when he was governor. There was also, that's where the sedition trial happened, where they tried to round up all these, right-wing extremists and put them on trial in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It failed. They were all acquitted. But so Clinton was very knowledgeable about these domestic extremist groups, so much so that when the Oklahoma City bombing happened, and most people, including myself, immediately assumed it was Islamic terrorists, because it was only 2 years after the first World Trade Center bombing, which was a truck bomb, and and Clinton, and he says it in the film, his first reaction was, because of his experience in Arkansas, is this is a homegrown plot. So I think he really wanted to make that point. And of course, the point you made, he's the one that says at the end is that it's hard to believe now that a lot of these ideas have gone mainstream.
Yeah.
Like Big Bay One. And I was just stunned when I heard